What is up, everybody? It's me, Video Person 102. I have this channel because my other channel was taken down. Yay, how fun. So I thought I'd do this thing where I read my favorite book, chapter at a time, in each episode. So there's this very particular, awesome series that I really love. It's a Sanderside series by Bekka911. Here's the first book called Bad Guy. I'll read the description. Book 1. If he was drowning, he'd just have to learn how to swim, even if he was tempted to let himself go under. And also don't comment about to see, because he was not a thing in the thingy thing. So let's get started. And oh, that halo is annoying. I'll have to take that off later. Chapter 1. I'm not always the bad guy. The words lingered in his head as he laid in my bed, staring up at the stars. His room didn't have a roof. But of course none of the others knew that. Nobody had ever ventured into his room before. They were all too wary of him. His name was Anxiety. Knocking on his door caused him to jump slightly, and he rolled his eyes and got up. Cracking the door open slightly, he sighed and spied Prince. "What do you want?" he snapped in terribly. "I'm bad at grammar, Othello." "Thomas is making a video," the fanciful side announced loudly. And Prince faltered. "Do you not want to come watch it?" "Not particularly." "Come on, Anxiety. Thomas is our host. You can at least pretend to be interested." Anxiety closed his eyes and exhaled. Fine. It wasn't that he didn't like Thomas. In fact, he was very fond of the boy. It was just that he didn't want to be disturbed today. It was one of those days. Prince dragged the darker personality towards the studio. The studio was the main control room of Thomas's mind. They could watch what he did, hear what he said, that sort of thing. Anxiety didn't even have to look to know Thomas was stressed, but he didn't know what about. Without warning, he felt himself being summoned, and was immediately dumped into the real world. "Anxiety!" Thomas welcomed enthusiastically. "What are you doing here?" What do you mean? You summoned me?" Anxiety started at his host in mass concern, noticing the bags under his eyes and the tiredness in his posture. "You look horrible." "Not my fault," he shouted suddenly. Anxiety recoiled slightly. He's never raised his voice at any of his personalities. Thomas glared at Anxiety. "Have you been keeping me up at night?" "No," he answered honestly. "Why do I feel like you're lying?" Thomas asked suspiciously. I'm not," the younger personality protested. "I've got nothing." Immediately, he felt Thomas's stress level rise, and panic began to set in. "Thomas? If you're not causing it, then what is?" he muttered. Anxiety glanced quickly at the camera. "Are you recording?" Thomas shook his head. "I was, but now." His growing panic triggered Anxiety's zone, and both started breathing quickly. Anxiety did the only thing he can think of. "Patton!" Dad appeared almost instantly and rushed over to the trembling human boy, wrapped him in a tight hug. "I thought something was wrong. Anxiety, what did you do?" "Nothing," the younger emotion defended. "He was already panicking." "Thomas?" Mortality cooed soothingly. "Thomas, listen to me. Deep breath. That's it." He looked at Anxiety, eyes hard and worried. "You can go now, Anxiety." Numb, he nodded and disappeared, shock coursing through his system. Logic and Prince were gathered in the studio when he appeared, frowning. "What happened?" Logan demanded, but Anxiety shook his head. "I don't know." "He had a panic attack," Patton answered from behind him. "A pretty severe one, too. Plus, he hadn't been sleeping. I told him to go to the doctor, see if he could get something to help." "What did you do, Anxiety?" Prince breathed. "I did nothing," he said defensively. What does everybody blame me? Bad grammar. They wrote it like that. I don't know if it was like a stuttering thing or a typo, but I'm reading it as it is. Sorry. Statistically, it's you that causes the problems, Logan stated. To put it bluntly, you run everything. Logic! Prince scolded, but his brown eyes were sorrowful as he gazed at the upset personality. Harsh as it may be, I agree with Logan. You do tend to be a center of a lot of Thomas's problems. It's my job, Anxiety protested. We don't require your presence here, Logan said. Please leave. Enough, Logan. Patton took a step towards Anxiety, but he flinched back. Anxiety? No, it's fine. The personality smirked feebly to hide the pain. I leave you morons to it. Without another word, he stalked away, willing himself to hold it together. He made it to his room and collapsed on the bed, staring up at the stars. He could feel Thomas's panic thrumming in the air, and he chewed on his lip. His host has never blown up on any of them before. And to be yelled at? For once, Anxiety hadn't done anything wrong. Why was he always the bad guy? I said that last line so wrong. Well, because we still have a lot of time left, I'm going to do the next chapter 2 to get you guys into the book a little bit more and stuff. Chapter 2. He was summoned again, then next after a night of tossing and turning. He didn't need anything to enhance the bags under his eyes. They were prominent enough. Logic was already with Thomas when he landed on the stairs, and they both narrowed their eyes as he turned to face them. You lied, Anxiety, Thomas said accusingly. I did what? He frowned. I don't lie. I'm rude and sarcastic and dark, but I never lied. Then how do you explain Thomas's panic attack or the sleepless nights? How do you explain the anxiety that's ruining his life? Logic glared. It's you, Anxiety. It's always you. You're the bad guy. The words hit deep, but Anxiety clenched his jaw and just stared as Logic ranted and yelled. Obviously, Logic continued. You're always doing something wrong. Thomas can't sleep or go out. He's always so anxious. You torture him, Anxiety. You're no good. You're evil. We'd all be better off without you. Is that how you feel, Thomas? Anxiety said quietly. Thomas hesitated. Well, I would be able to do more if you weren't around. Anxiety nodded. All right, okay. Without another word, he let himself sink back into Thomas's mind, numb. No, that was a lie. He had so many feelings swirling around his body, so many emotions. The other personality seemed to forget that he was the youngest out of all of them. He felt everything twice as much, and despite his cold exterior, he was vulnerable. His head throbbed, and black spots flickered in his vision as he landed in the kitchen, almost falling on Prince. The regal personality was just putting a carton of milk back in the fridge when the emotion appeared. Anxiety! Roman welcomed. The youngest backed away as his breathing picked up speed. Prince noticed and took a step closer, concerned. Anxiety? A strangled cry clawed its way out of his throat, a low knee sound that amplified and echoed, and his eyes filled with tears. Anxiety? What's the matter? Stay away, he choked out, desperately trying to hold back sobs. Usually, he could make it to his room before he had an attack. Just leave me alone. Anxiety, what's happening? Prince reached a hand out, worry clouding his eyes. Nothing. Anxiety forced out, gritting his teeth as the room spun. I'm fine. You're not fine, Prince insisted. I'm fine. The emotion spat, stumbling towards the door. I'm fine. He couldn't let Prince see how broken he was inside. I'm fine. Eternally, he was cursing himself for being so reckless, for letting his weakness be seen so clearly. I'm fine. Anxiety! He ran before Prince could stop him, heart pounding in his ears. He'd spent years bottling it all up. He'd spent so long soaking up all the harsh words and the blame. He was at his breaking point. His bedroom was welcoming as he burst through the door, clutching his chest. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, and his eyes felt puffy and red. He crouched on his bed and stopped fighting the terror that pounded in his veins. Instantly, his vision flared ruby and his skin itched and crawled. Thoughts flooded his brain, terrible, negative thoughts and feelings assaulted in his chest. His heart throbbed with pain, and he curled up into a ball, clawing wildly on his wrist. He was alone. He was alone. He was alone. Logic felt the slightest twitch in his heart as anxiety bowed his head and disappeared. But he brushed the feelings off and turned to Thomas. The boy was staring at his hands, his lower lip trembling as he held back tears. Logic sighed. Feelings were the bane of his existence. Thomas, without anxiety, you'll be happier. Happier. Just think about it. No more worries. Hakuna Matata. The teacher blinked. What do you mean? Do you want him to stay? Oh, sorry, I just skipped a whole line. The host looked up. Both had anxiety. I wouldn't be me. The teacher blinked. What do you mean? Do you want him to stay? The whole reference threw me off, sorry. Well, no, Thomas ran his head through his hair in frustration. But he was created by me. He's a part of me. If he's gone, then part of my personality, part of me, is gone too. Well, technically speaking, you're right. The personality adjusts his glasses. But if you were to lose anxiety, you're only losing a part of you that makes you stressed and anxious. Have you been told anything about dim down your anxiety? Thomas looked at his hands again before exhaling heavily. The doctor gave me 2 bottles of medication. You already know about the sleeping pills. But there was another. He picked up a bottle that Logic hadn't noticed. Anxiety relief pills. Logic gasped. Thomas tipped 2 of the tiny pills into his palm and smiled sadly. Will they affect him badly? I don't know. The personality admitted. I don't know. Thomas squeezed his eyes and shut and swallowed the pills dry as one lone tear cracked his cheek. He was alone in the darkness until he was not. Sometimes during his attack, his door had opened, and someone had run in and wrapped him in a hug. He was still sobbing, and his howls had softened into soft cries, muffled by a red sash. Prince held anxiety tighter. As the younger personality stiffened, his whimpers silenced. Anxiety? There was no response. Anxiety! And then anxiety began to scream. Cliffhanger! I hope you guys enjoyed that. I kind of like the acting on the spot, it's like reading a script for the first time. You're trying to get the voices right because you know the characters. But I've read this before, but once. It's just super fun. Thank you all for the support. I have no subscribers. Hello. I'm posting with no subscribers right now. Hashtag Fanders, because we the Fanders. Ooh woo. And I'll see you next 2 chapters. I don't know. So, should I do my old outro or should I make a new outro? For now, we're going to do my old outro. Like always, do your best.